In this video, we're just going to demystify the concept of the backdoor 2-5. It's kind of just actually a normal, common borrowing move from parallel minor. That's the one thing with music, is we tend to have all these different terms for the same thing, which can create a lot of confusion. And I'd actually love it if everybody got on board and started using the same terms regardless of the style they're into. So I asked Perplexity AI, and it's pulling from mostly jazz sources and message boards. So of course it's going to say jazz only progression. So a regular 2-5-1 turnaround would be that. D minor 7, G7, C major 7th. The backdoor 2-5 is F minor 7th, B flat 7, C major 7th. You don't even need the 7ths actually, but those are chords from parallel minor. The 4 chord and the flat 7 chord. With basic chords, interestingly enough, that's a common melodic minor cadence if you're in F minor. So the only thing I want to point out is jazz did not invent this kind of move. Here's David Arnold's Voyage of the Dawn Treader theme from Narnia. And I just remember this off the top of my head because I was teaching a student this one time, going through the harmony for that. Ralph Vaughan Williams, Norfolk Rhapsody. It's a symphonic poem. Uses the same thing. Except on his 1 chord, it's not a 7th chord. That's the only difference. But that doesn't matter. It's still the same bass progression. Again, I want to point out this is almost like doing a melodic minor cadence. There's the raised version, the lowered version. 1 with the lowered version passing through, raised version upward. Interesting similarity there. Except you replace the 5 chord with the 1 chord with the backdoor 2-5. So let's go over the basic version. The C root, F minor, B flat. Those 2 chords are borrowed. Now interestingly enough, this is a 2-5 in the key of E flat, F minor, B flat. Those 2 chords are the 2-5 of E flat, the relative major of the parallel minor. Now with the B flat 7, one of the reasons it moves so well to that C chord is it's, again, the power of dominant chords. They're very versatile. That tritone wants to go like that. Okay. A very natural resolution. It just has a pull towards doing that, and it sounds very natural. But the whole idea is that it's just really borrowing from parallel minor. I can use other chords from parallel minor and use that to get back. So you can use any parallel minor sequence like this and use that backdoor 2-5, in other words minor 4 flat 7 chord, to get back to your 1. We're going to use this in our own way. There's a link to a code for basic chromatic harmony if you don't know how to create these kind of sequences. We're going to first do 5 of 2, 2, 5, 1, backdoor 2, backdoor 5, 1. Now we're going to take this basic sequence and spice it up with some additions and keep the upper note diatonic as if we're harmonizing melodies. And I have an expansion to chromatic harmony that shows you how to do stuff like this. Harmonize any diatonic tone. Now here's our backdoor 2-5. And this gives us a really nice way to give us an unexpected ending towards something. Maybe it's a phrase of diatonic melody. That you've been trying to harmonize with chords. That's one way you can approach this. Now I'm going to do something what I call taking the same idea and exposing it to a bunch of different things. So I'm going to take the 6th chord of C major, use that as the new backdoor 2-5, 1. 1 to E major for a modulation. 1, you could use that same sequence. Backdoor 2-5 to G sharp, okay, by using the 6th chord of E major. You can turn these into your own little ideas based off of one concept. E major, the 6th chord is the backdoor 2-5 to A flat or G sharp. And you could go anywhere at this point now, depending on the style of music you're into. I'm just kind of improvising this in, but now we're back to C. Let's use a backdoor 2/5, which is just parallel minor borrowing, okay? The point is to learn from moves, not just isolate them to one specific thing that you can do with it. If I take the 3 chord of C major, which is E minor, that's the backdoor 2/5 to B. You could use that as a modulation. So I'm turning this now into an harmonic exercise of modulation just from using the backdoor 2/5 concept. So remember, you don't need 7th chords all the time for something to be the same. It's still the same bass root movement. So let's go through a basic simple thing you could do. Using the A minor as a pivot chord from C major to E major. That's the backdoor 2/5 in E major. Do the same thing in E major. A flat major. Do the same thing in A flat major. What happens? We're back to C major. So we're using the backdoor 2/5, in other words borrowing, to get 2 different keys. This is just a constant backdoor 2/5 pivot sequence. However, I prefer to see it as just borrowed chords. Or melodic minor, that's because that's such a typical move in melodic minor. However, you're reversing the process and considering the 5 chord as the 1 chord. And when you start adopting this kind of thinking, you start to see more possibilities with specific moves. I'm not writing any of this out on purpose because I encourage experimentation. You have to learn to problem solve these things yourself. So take any minor chord and create the backdoor 2/5, which again would just be borrowing. Maybe use the 6th chord of that current key and do the same process. Let's do it in inversion and walk down like that. There's a new approach, something else. Backdoor 2/5 of B with inversion use instead. A lot of music learning is also experimenting like this. So try walking to inversions in the C version. You don't have to use 7th chords. You can use basic chords if you want, but try to use all kinds of different variations. Create endless variations. This is something I always have students do. Just figure out ways to combine these chords in different voicings and variations. That's part of problem solving. Thinking of it more of like a horizontal kind of lines. And I'm just using the borrowed parallel minor 4 flat 7 chord all the time, just doing it in various ways I can think of. You can go to the flat 6, harmonize the C note, use the same move. Now it's a 9 chord, back to the C. So this little concept of the backdoor 2/5, which is just borrowing, we're running ourselves through a ton of options where we can use this and not just be a jazz move, for instance. That's why I said just a jazz chord progression. That's incorrect. We could use it to escape borrowing. We figured this out. There it is. We could use to modulate. Modulate. Stay in the tonal center for a second. It's kind of loitering in A flat. I know the 6th chord is the F minor, so it could take us back to C. Backdoor 2/5 cadence. The point is if you take the same chord sequence and recognize that you could use it for all these other completely, totally different stylistic sounds, don't become so stylistically locked for one. Don't just hone in on one style. Learn from other styles. And if you do that, you'll actually be way better off for it. And you'll start to recognize, besides the style you're into, other things these same exact moves can do to actually enhance the styles you're into. And you could use them in your own way and not just some way somebody else has shown you. And at that point, you start developing your own harmonic language.